Hi, and welcome again to the Seafood Business Accelerator Innovation Plan Canvas webinar series. That doesn't get any easier every time I say it, but I'm Deborah, your host, and with me today are Bruce and Ellie. Bruce and Ellie are experts that have been working with us on the Seafood Business Accelerator project. And as you know, the goal of the Seafood Business Accelerator is to help you capture more value for your harvests. We'll start out with introductions. I will start with Bruce, who joins us today from Ladner, BC. Bruce, hello, who are you?
Hi there. Well, Deborah, I was very fortunate to work on the initial SBA program last year, which I thoroughly enjoyed, meeting people like Ellie and yourself. And my background is very strong in seafood. I worked at a BC company actually from startup right through to international trade and selling all across Canada, the United States, and so forth. So product development is very dear to me and very important in terms of succeeding in food business. And what I'm very excited about, though, is working with rural fishers, local communities, and really the stretch of our coast that has all these opportunities for new businesses in seafood. It's very exciting.
Excellent. Thank you, Bruce. And thank you for mentioning that this webinar is on product development and production, which ordinarily I would mention that, but I forgot. So yes, this is webinar number 9. And also with us is Ellie, who joins us from Deep Bay, or do you prefer Bowser?
Deep Bay. I think it has a nicer ring to it. Yes, I live right on the water. So I am a chef of more years than I want to mention. I have worked in every aspect of the industry, from hotels and restaurants to large-scale production I used to work out in yachts. I've worked in fish camps. I've worked sort of anywhere that food and beverages is created. And my passion now is working on things like product development, working small-scale industries that are trying to create and work with seafood, because that's what we have so much of. And we're very lucky and very blessed that we have this beautiful ocean full of products that are largely underutilized. So that's me.
And I can attest to Ellie's skills. So Ellie is very amazing in her trade. And I'm also going to mention, so Ellie is here today from Deep Bay, and it turns out that we are recording this in the winter, and she is without power and hotspotting in order to do this webinar today. And I just mentioned that because I know many of the people who watch this are going to be in areas that don't have reliable, access, and we deal with that as well. And also, it just demonstrates that the beauty of technology. I think I've said in a couple of webinars, the world is your oyster, and you can work with people anywhere in the world. And there are workarounds to some of the technical difficulties that some of us experience. So with that, I wanted to just talk a little bit about product development, production, the innovation plan. Like, why is it is it helpful to have a plan when we're looking at product development?
It's very important to have a sense of direction, an idea of processes, sort of accumulate where you want to start and where you want to go. So you need tools of some kind. And where I see product development being streamlined and then incorporating into your innovation canvas, for example, it simplifies kind of where you got to focus your attention on.
So here we are again, Innovation Plan Canvas. This is the Good Fish Seafood Company, one of the participants at our pilot project. And I just wanted to mention we have a showcase at the end of each program, and it allows people to easily see that the participants have actually addressed or thought about all these different aspects of creating a new product or changing their business. There we go. So we're focused on the product development and production box right now. You can watch the videos or the webinars in any different order. We've put them in the order that they are. It somewhat makes sense. The flow works, but you can work on these in all different orders. So here we are. Let's keep it focused. This is probably mostly for me, this slide. What is product development? What does that mean? What does it mean to you, Ellie, when we talk about product development?
Well, so much of it is taking advantage of available materials that you might have, because the costs are quite high. And if you have an advantage, a cost advantage of having material, for instance, seaweed that might be plentiful, or bycatch of something that you're already doing, if you've got those kind of opportunities, then why would you not want to develop that as a product?
So in the talk today, that that's it. We're going to talk about what is product development, why do we develop the new products or services, some examples, and then how does having a plan help? So the next slide, what is product development? Ellie articulated or said, like it's about, you've got an opportunity and you can do something with these materials that you have. So Bruce, do you want to talk through this a little bit in terms of the process of product development?
Sure. Well, I think most people, particularly those that are contemplating getting into producing seafood products, just as Ellie was mentioning there, I think most ever wonder, how do products actually come to be? What is the framework that products actually go from an idea right down to commercializing and, in the hands of the consumer? And how is that concept going to be successful? So this framework gives kind of a nice little flow of how that process works, which, starts with a product concept, an idea that you may have. That, as you say, you have access to a raw material, or you've been in the stores, you're a fisher, and go, gee, I could really come up with a great product out of Banfield or something like this. But it starts with that. So you're generating these ideas, and within that, you start to research and develop. Is there a market demand out there, or are consumer trends going in that way? And eventually you sort of get into sort of a complete process of research and development of the idea. Through that, you eventually start to develop product forms, prototypes. See what does the product look like? What kind of ingredients do I have access to, or would I be using in this? Does the prototype make sense? And the iterations that I start to move forward with the product, are they applicable? Then eventually, you're getting down to more refining now. Is this something that the formula, as I mentioned, the ingredients have been perfected, the taste, the texture, the cook time, all of these things are narrowing down more to a final product. And then from that, the selection and choice of where you're going to go now with all of the elements, all of the elements of the product itself. So you've now selected. Next, of course, comes to doing small batches, seeing whether this will fly. You'll be able to scale this up. Typically a food hub will help, or other types of facilities, to see it's now time to take my specifications of that product and hand it to production and start to move it through into manufacturing this product. And that's sometimes based on, again, cost, time, and everything. You're starting to now look at the true cost, the true labor needed, all of these elements.
Yeah.
And then finally, you're looking at launch. Where am I now going to roll this out? Who am I going to sell to? What sort of promotional support will I need? And where am I going to sell? The thought of direct sales, you go and sell it yourself, or you're going to contemplate distributors. And then eventually evaluate, what were the sales like? Were there repeatable sales? Is this something that the market is responding well to, not responding as well as you hope? You've got to make some adjustments there. So both forms, you're generating an idea, you're selecting the product form, the idea, and you're getting out there and giving it a go.
So I just actually did the webinar with Greg McLaren just before this one, and it's kind of funny, but the process is very similar for each of the different areas that you have to look at when you're in the process of developing a new product or a new program, anything really. And so Greg was talking about how often the adaptations are what end up creating a better marketing plan in this sense. He was talking about marketing, but it's also the same with production and product development. It's often you go through the process, you make adaptations, and then you go back again, right? And you do it again. So everybody knows in the audience, we have a lot of discussions before we end up coming in front of you here, although it may not seem like it. And, there was a fair bit of discussion about, how was it that production fit into this box, on the innovation plan. And it does, from the sense that when you're doing your product development, you have to think about how are you going to actually produce or manufacture this product ultimately. And it may be when you're doing your scale up that you're initially looking at, okay, I'm going to work with a co-packer. And then when I achieve certain level of sales, then I might look at actually, either leasing or buying or building a processing facility and buying my own equipment and so on and so forth, which is, the next stage or another level of what you might be doing. But just like our whole innovation plan canvas has to do with the development of a new product or a pivot of a company, you have to know what all the other elements are before you can move forward. Right?
That's right. Yeah.
Right. That was great, Bruce. This is a really good overview of the process. Perhaps you can speak to this in terms of why we're developing new products.
Okay, well, I mean, one is you either have a passion for it and you wanted to see it out there, or one is that you're trying to take advantage of opportunity that you might have. I mean, every business has overhead that is a fixed cost. And if you have an advantage, or if you have a cost of raw materials, or if you have access to good labor, you have an opportunity to develop something that might be more profitable more quickly. And this can be by looking at things like, as we said, bycatch or recovering things from their waste stream.
Typically, we're looking at filling a gap, modifying or improving, or line extensions, which is pretty much what you're saying exactly, right?
Yeah, and the other problem with filling a gap is and we talked about this the other day, is it a supply problem or is it a demand problem? Because if there's a demand, it's fairly easy to fill that market gap. But if you have a lot of supply of something, how can you create a market for it, which is a slightly different process. And you generally need partners to do that with, like distribution partners or something that'll push a product through. But you need to have a good feeling of how much take up you're going to have, because market gaps, and also we talked about how in the time of COVID, the market gap was home delivery or direct to consumer marketing.
Yeah.
But you have to be nimble enough to take advantage of that. And this is where small companies have a big advantage, because they can retool and focus their attention and try and take advantage of things that might be a timely problem. Large companies have real problems adjusting their whole production and their business model to accommodate small changes in the marketplace or quick changes in the marketplace.
Yeah, no, agreed. Anything to add, Bruce, on that?
Yeah, I agree completely with what Ellie and you are saying. Market gap also is unmet need too. You may find, depending on the species that you're catching, or there's pent-up demand growing, let's say in Victoria or in Nanaimo for a certain size sablefish that you're completely zoned in on, that you can fill that in. Now that's a higher end thing. And I always find, I was in a lot of smoked salmon, for example, where the trim became more in demand in due time than the actual smoked salmon. There's an example of taking recovery and making a product out of it, but you got to be a little careful. That can get high demand pretty fast.
Yeah, I might mention this here as well. So, of course, one of our other webinars was on grant writing. I have to be careful with this. I mean, you don't. It's not a wise thing to do new things to capture money for a grant, right? However, what is wise is to know that there's a gap, or there's raw material, as Ellie mentions, and then also to match that with funding. And often, not always, but often funding does try to incent the filling of gaps. So in this case, we know, that the waste, in air quotes, the waste, or the amount of the seafood that's not used is quite high, when we're doing head-on gutted fish, right? Actually, more so when we're doing fillets and that kind of thing, right? So we have a lot of waste when we're producing that kind of a product. And so there are actually, at the time of us recording this, there are some programs that are there to help divert waste. Like, we want to have less waste. So if you can marry this funding that's available to help divert waste from food processing with filling a market need, then you have a really good project that you can access some funding for. So that's something to keep in mind.
One growing area too has been the pet food market.
Exactly.
With salmon skins and other types of things where there's a much more nutritious fill capturing there. So
pet food, cosmetics, natural health products are all potentials there, too. And it's like, so if the funding is about reducing waste, then that's how you put it in. If it's about new product development, which typically it's not, but that you could pose it as that's what you're trying to do. The next few slides are a series of examples of how products have filled market gaps. We can talk to this one here, which Bruce, I think, actually provided some of these examples. And so I'll let you talk about them a bit. I will note we did have one of our pilot program participants was very keen on developing an oyster pill, and it was because she saw a gap, and the gap that she saw was, one, she had a mineral deficiency herself, and two, she was able to buy these, but from other places in the world, not from British Columbia, where there are many oysters. So in that sense, that is how she identified a gap, and she continues to work on that project. So Bruce, you want to talk about some of these examples?
Well, I think when we have such a fantastic ecosystem for oysters and, just plentiful of raw material, and you start to see entirely new categories, non-food, but going more into supplements or going into wellness programs. I mean, certainly over the last 10 years, there's been much more emphasis on managing yourself and improving your health through more natural processes as opposed to, non-natural and chemical and so forth.
Yeah.
So things like that have been around for a while, say in another market like Japan and more Asian, you start to see, is it possible for us to get involved with that under our brand and extend it? Is there something developing in the supplement category where the nutrients of oyster extract fits that need? It's unmet and the supply is there. And it also helps increase the brand recognition as well. Similarly with kelp. I mean, I'm a kelpie. I'm in the kelp business here a little bit. But I'm seeing all kinds of, if you asked me 10 years ago, Deborah and Ellie, about kelp, I'm sorry, I would be a blank page, not really understanding. And yet it's thousands of years that, kelp and seaweed and, either as food or other types of utilities been there. And now we're putting it into jars, into soaps, into other things, and just a multitude of things, let alone the snacks and the nori that we've all become familiar with.
Right.
So these gaps are now starting to get filled up through what our marine environment can provide in British Columbia.
Right.
And local suppliers can do this. Just wanted to quickly say about this fish. This is a software. Now, does it relate to food? It assists food. It assists food production. Traceability is a very important thing in seafood these days. Mislabeling, there's all kinds of things. Area of catch and tracking through the whole entire production process. And this is a BC company that's come up with a software program who has worked in the seafood industry and is getting global attention. And many of the BC processors are now utilizing that. So there's a gap. It may be of a software position, but it's innovation helping seafood processing and companies.
And I think this is a really good example. So it may be that you get into wanting to add more value to your harvest. You're a fisher, you're a farmer, and in the process of doing this, like you're doing your market research and you start developing a process or something, it may well be that you end up being a software developer instead of a fish harvester, and that you help other people in the industry with the service that you've developed to actually move your business along. But it turns out that your business that provides a service actually is more lucrative or has more value than what you originally started thinking about.
Absolutely.
right?
Yes.
This, to me, this slide also is really, really important for on the production side. So anybody who's watching this, I guarantee, and you know, you come after me if I'm wrong, but anybody who's watching this is not in, does not have the capacity to produce a natural health product in capsules. You just do not, okay? But you will possibly have the idea to do this, and you will be working with a co-packer to do that production that has the equipment that, you know, that meets the regulatory requirements. So, you know, and this was what our pilot participant discovered, right? She didn't realize how difficult it was to actually produce an oyster pill. But in the end, it was actually, it's not that difficult at all, because she was collaborating with someone who already knows all of the natural health product rules and regulations and knows the process and can actually produce the product for her. Same with cosmetics. You know, it's unlikely that people will have the capacity in the initial stages of their business to produce a cosmetic that meets the requirements that the market requires. However, through collaboration and knowing, learning who is out there who can help you, then you can actually get your product onto the market.
That's absolutely right. There are companies taking kelp and making bioplastics, and they actually are moving this quite forward. And what it does is it starts with an idea, and then, you know, you start to surround yourself with available technology and the real innovation, you know, to make it work. But like everything else, costs come into play, and you know, how viable is the whole idea. But it starts with an idea.
Yeah, it does. Let's see what else we have here for examples. So modifying or improving products, and this just shouts Ellie to me. So there's some examples here that are actually quite near, and one of them for sure is near and dear to her.
So that was quite a successful changing, you know, using what was going to be a waste product into a real value added market, a winning product.
Yeah, and the other products on this slide are all, they're examples of companies using what traditionally would be waste and converting it into products that are a gap on the market, right? So using oyster shells for a supplement for hens, that's been on the market for a long time. The challenge there would be to come up with the process to actually create the crushed oyster shell. The other one is Just One Fish. That's a new product that Walcan has come up with, and so they're using the whole fish and marketing that for pet food. And then this Smack is another pet food product that a company has come out with to utilize the whole fish. Again, you know, like we want to use the whole fish, and that is obviously going to improve the bottom line, because I'm not putting things in the garbage. I'm actually using those products.
Again, a great example of our animal friends, you know, food for our animal friends using natural, beautiful ingredients.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of interest in, I think the population of pets has gone up tremendously with the pandemic, but yeah, lots of interest in pets. And here are some examples of line extensions. I think Scout is a company that Bruce brought to our attention. So they make a number of different seafood snacks, and they come up with different flavors. The can on the right is Nas Seafood out of Tofino. And they have a line of kelp products, different flavored kelp products, and that line increases. They add new flavors. I'm sure that they're reviewing the sales of their products, and then they add and delete and modify as they need. And then this is below is actually a line extension for lobster, Red Lobster, which is an American company, but you often see this where retailers come up with a line that people can take home. And that's something that, you know, you as seafood harvesters might be able to work something out with a local restaurant or cafe, you know, that might have a recipe that they're using, and you could create, you know, help them create a line that they can sell for take-home products. So,
well, it really helps because you've already got somebody that's done most of the marketing for you. You know, Red Lobster does have a name and a reputation, and so there's brand recognition right away.
Yeah,
So you're tagging on to somebody else's success, and that's the perfect line extension
yeah.
because it's a made to market, ready to go product, but somebody's already done all the hard work of marketing it.
Well, I think you've nailed it there, right? I mean, it's you've already got the brand out there, and it's selling, you know, and so that you can add to that line. I think we've all alluded to this in this discussion as well, though. You know, you need to constantly be evaluating, you know, because if you have, there's no point in having a line of 10 different products and only 2 sell, which
Right.
you know, you see often, you know. So, you know, and you see the entrepreneur is producing these products, and I have to produce them because it's on my production list, or it's what I've told my co-packer to make, and they're making it, and yet most of it's not selling. So you'd be much better off to make more of the ones that sell and just forget about the other ones.
Quick little mention on Scout. It's interesting because in Europe, they call it tinned, you know, seafood as opposed to canned. And actually, there are places that it's very high end, you know, surprisingly, what you would pay for a tin of lobster, let's say, or whatever. It's like the foie gras thing over there, not to hijack it from seafood into that realm. But they came up with a really good idea. We're specific with the market they were attacking. It was a little more high end with wines and so forth.
Yeah.
But it is taking an idea from a different region and seeing if a trend is evolving, say, in Canada. And then this was the extension, is this snack. You know, so they had their core assortment and then ended it out to a snack now, something a little more affordable and snackable for people. So I thought it was clever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now you remind me why I put that under line extension. So yes, yeah, that's great. Excellent.
Well, also it's just you know, people changing people's minds about, you know, if you think of a tin tuna, that's got to be the cheapest thing to eat, right? That's what poor people eat. And yet, if you go onto a Jamie Oliver website where he's talking about using tuna in one of his recipes, his tin tuna comes out of a jar, and it looks ever so, you know, a glass jar, and it's a very high-end product.
Yeah.
And he's basically rethinking the whole concept of canned tuna or canned fish, making it very desirable looking. And, you know, it's used, he was making an Italian dish called vitello tonato, which is a tuna sauce just in mayonnaise. It's very simple, but you do need just canned fish to make it. You know, if you just pulled out a can of stuff that you got at the supermarket, people will go, oh, that's not very down market. But he can pull it off because he's got a beautiful glass jar and it's got a gold lid and a beautiful label. We can make people rethink how they attach value to certain items, right?
We definitely can. We also have to make sure we follow the regulations, right? Or know what the regulations are. So sometimes what we see in other regions is just not possible here based on the regulations. So, you know, and that's why we do have, I don't know what you want to say, you know, we have this box that says regulations. So you have to, you do your market research, you find out what's working in other areas, and then you look into the feasibility of doing that by checking in all the other aspects of it. So that was actually a good switch here. So we go back to the innovation plan canvas. It was great having those examples and the discussion, and you know, bring us back to the product development and production box or segment. And what we're suggesting is that people start with describing what it is that you want to develop. So that may be you've already done some market research, or you're coming into it cold and you have this idea and this is what you want to develop, and how you're going to move it forward. And then you just continually review it. So it sounds like a ton of work, but I mean, you review it and then you update it. So some of the other experts have said, you know, print it out, and you can do it in handwriting, or you can just create additional versions, but you're always going to be modifying it as you move along. So here, just as an example, this is just an example, but we're suggesting that this could be the type of entry that you'd put in there. What I want to do is I want to create a shelf-stable product using trim. Who am I going to work with? Well, I'm going to work with the product development expert and look at different production options. Maybe I'm going to use a food hub. You know, maybe I'll go into a food hub and be a an hourly client and use the equipment there on an hourly basis. Or maybe I'm going to go to a custom processor and have them process this product for me. And then what my goal is that I would want to produce this in my community. Again, this is a sample entry. Next steps with the innovation plan canvas is, you keep working on it. You're getting, if you're following it in order, you're getting pretty close to the end now. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason that product development and production is towards the end, because you have to do a lot of homework before, but it all happens together as well, right? So, you have to do a fair bit of research before you get to the point where you're actually sitting down and on the bench and working on your product. So fill in the box with what you think you're going to do or what you want to do. We keep saying that you want to use SMART goals, so things that are specific, measurable, that have timelines, so that you keep yourself on track and you actually do things. Of course, you're going to watch the rest of the webinars, and then, like we say, just keep going back and revisiting it as you go along. That presentation was just like the innovation plan canvas is a guide for people as they're developing their product. The presentation was kind of a guide for us to have something to talk about and to keep us on track on the product development and production box or segment of the innovation plan canvas. But I wanted to ask you, Bruce, before we sign off, as someone who does provide guidance, mentorship to people in the seafood sector and other food sectors as well, if they came to you with an innovation plan canvas and they had actually filled it out before they sat down with you, what would your thoughts be?
I would be very impressed of all of the categories that they've thought through, because it gives a comprehensive view of what they're, particularly if you're seeking funding, investing, or other things too.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to say is that these business models are useful tools. They're very, very useful. They're concise. They're easy to understand. You want to direct the person realistically too, though. There can be it's better to make a mistake on paper than in the market.
Yeah, no. Well said. And Ellie, your thoughts on someone coming to you with a plan?
Well, it makes a big difference when you realize that they have actually thought it through. Mm-hmm. Because a plan and an idea is kind of like up there in the air somewhere. Maybe I think this would work. Well, show me why it would work. Give me some evidence that there's actually legs to this, right?
Right.
And if there are, then yeah, giddy up. Let's go. Let's work on it.
There's no question, Deborah. I think anybody would be quite impressed if they saw that in front of them, open to discussion now.
Yeah.
It would move more into execution.
Yeah, exactly. You guys, we could talk forever, I think. This has been a really, really good presentation. I'm going to say let's say goodbye. Nice.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for setting this up, Deborah. It was a pleasure.
Oh, that's
Thank
great.
you.
Well, it's always nice to see you as well.